Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and let's do a review of Frostpunk, shall we? Frostpunk is a game that I've played a ton on the channel. I have a Let's Play that has started, died, restarted, and I also have a complete beginner's guide in case you're looking at how to get into the game and survive. I'll put links to those in the description below, and on the Steam page it says that Frostpunk is the first society survival game. As the ruler of the last city on Earth, it's your duty to manage both its citizens and infrastructure. What decisions will you make to ensure your society's survival? What will you do when pushed to breaking point? Who will you become in the process? And the user-defined tags are city builder, survival, resource management. So, Frostpunk is a builder, like SimCity, Anno, something like that perhaps, except it is a very defined building space that you have, and as they say, it's not about just kind of like kicking back and building something and really marveling at how awesome your place is and just slowly enjoying the rising population and the money that you're making and on, but instead it's a building survival game. Like, you have a very utilitarian job to do as the city manager, which is create a civilization, create a small community of stragglers to try and survive and, find other survivors out there in the freezing cold that might want to live in your city and build up bit by bit. But it's a struggle the entire way as you fight the elements, as you fight, resource management, food, insurrection. So it's a different take on the building game because of the difficulty and the direness of the situation and the survival element. So when I get into a review, I really like to kind of just do my personal take on the game, and then at the end I'll do a recommendation on whether or not I think you should play Frostpunk. So the first thing I always talk about with a review is whether or not the game is fun. And I think that Frostpunk is a fun game, but it might not feel that way the first time you play it. It's a kind of a game where it almost sets you up to fail because of how punishing it is, and there are some surprises that you might not necessarily be able to plan for your first time, and you really have to kind of treat it as a game that you play, you learn a little bit, you lose, you die, and then you start a new file, use what you've learned to make better choices, to plan better, to get a little faster at managing things and savvier, so that you can survive longer and then repeat until you claim victory. So it is a game that has fun in the sense that it feels really good to survive and make it to a new point because of how challenging it is. So I actually have fun, and it feels, like I said, fantastic when you look at your resources and you're like, okay, we're actually doing okay right now, and we're going to make it, and I'm doing so much better than I did the previous time, and so there is fun in that, and there's fun just in playing the game because it's so well polished and well done. There's a lot of transparency with the information. It looks amazing, and it's a fun game to play in that element, but it's a brutal game with terrible moral decisions that you have to make, horrible environmental issues that are thrown at you, and you're just trying to make the best of a really, really bad situation. So, given that this is the type of game that you're playing, this kind of building survival game, how does the game control? How does Frostpunk control? I think that Frostpunk controls very well. It does a great job of using the mouse in a very simplistic way. The UI helps you, and it's very clear, what you're doing to move the camera around. I think that controlling the camera, building, all of these things, zooming in, zooming out, are done really, really well in Frostpunk, and everything, like I said, looks fantastic. So as far as the controls go, I had no issues with the controls in Frostpunk. There's a lot of intelligent keybinds that are built in, so I think it controls great. Now, a subset of controls I always talk about with a review are the systems and the UI. What systems are there in the game, and how are they executed, and how does the UI help you navigate those systems? So Frostpunk has a few main systems. Building is, the primary one. Managing things, your labor force, your heat, and such, and then exploration. I think all of the systems in the game, honestly, are done really well. You do have the building system, and it's not like that it's done poorly. It's just a building system that is very, very much on rails because you have a limited amount of space that you can build in, and you're bound by your central furnace. Like, you want to be so close to your generator to keep the heat, and that's just part of the game. That being said, it provides its own unique challenges, to know that, okay, well, which buildings do I want to put close to the generator? And how do I want to structure this? How do I want to build this? Where do I need to put my, steam hubs and my workforce and so on? So I think that the building system is cool. It's very clear. The area of influence of the heating structures and the service buildings, I feel that it's done as well as it can be, and I had no problems with that. And now the research system is pretty solid. There are some difficult choices that you need to make because the tech tree is very deep. So that is probably, the most diverse of the systems, in my opinion, where you're looking at so many choices that you want to make. There is a legal system where you pass laws and decrees as a ruler, and those are pretty interesting, but there's, at least in the campaign, there's very few of them. Like, you could take, a different path as a ruler. You can go religion, or you can go, more practical. And there are some choices that you make that are like, more cutthroat, but maybe help, or, maybe don't help as much, but you can bury people, for example, instead of just burning them or whatever. And, these are choices that you need to make that do impact things, but they're very minimal and binary. And so that's an area where I think you could probably go into some more depth and complexity, because it doesn't feel like there's a lot to it. Like, your builds and your play are very, very narrow in the game. It's not like, okay, I'm going to go for this kind of a playthrough, and you have a really niche style that you go for. There's just pretty much, one or the other. So it's pretty good, but I feel like this is a room for improvement in the game, giving you a little bit more latitude with some of the choices that you make in terms of the government decisions as a ruler, and even some of the building, freedom and liberties. The exploration system is really well done. Managing things is very, very easy, and all of that is governed by the UI. I think the UI is just so fantastic in this game. There's overlays, there's information, it's very clear, like what's going where. And once you learn how to, look at the heat map, look at this kind of map, you need the information because it's such a challenging game, and it's really well done and polished. So I love the UI in the game, and I think the systems do work pretty well. So what about the story in Frostpunk? Frostpunk is a game that has a really cool sense of lore. It's incredibly unique. It's not so much about reading a lot of lore and getting a lot of story, although emotional moments do crop up. And these small notes that are in the game, I think, really speak to the depth and uniqueness and, just the overall interest of the game, where you get people commenting on the decisions that you've made, and you feel great or you feel terrible based on, what people's response is. And as you learn about what happened to the world, how people responded, it is just such a bleak and dire circumstance. And yet I was interested and I wanted to know more myself. So I like the story in the game. Now, what about the graphics? How does Frostpunk look? This is a real strong point of Frostpunk, which are the visuals. It looks amazing, and this is top to bottom. Like, the city itself looks great as you build it. The overworld looks good. The menus look good. The windows look good. There's just so much cool art design throughout the game that it's a very, very nice looking game. And what about the audio in Frostpunk? How is the music, the sound, the voice acting? There's not a tremendous amount of voice in the game, except in cinematics perhaps, but the music is really good. The sound effects are great. You get them. It's iconic. The day beginning, the day ending, and the overall kind of din of the city itself. I think the audio is really good, and I like the music in the game. Now, given all that, how does it come together in a sense of style? Does Frostpunk feel like it's just checking the boxes and it's well executed, but it's empty, it has no soul? Or does this feel like an interesting, unique contribution to the gaming space that even has some, artistic expression within it? And I think that the answer is yes. I think Frostpunk has a great sense of style. It oozes style, in fact. With how the inky way and smoky way that the menus, kind of come in and out, the touches like that, to the brutal elements, the unique clothing and garb that people have, the steampunk sensibility, the robots, the way that the game plays out and shows you all of these, kind of like really, really well thought out and interesting buildings, structures, uniforms. I think that this is a game with an amazing sense of style, and it makes me look forward to Frostpunk 2. So, given that I feel it has a good style and, good visuals and everything, what is my overall grade for Frostpunk? What letter grade would I give it? So, I have a great time with Frostpunk, and before I disclose my grade, I always kind of ground my review in the Steam reviews and the Metacritic score of the game to provide a baseline. So on Metacritic, Frostpunk has an 84 from 70 critics and an 8.4 from over 1,000 users. And then on Steam, there's a little over 88,000 very positive reviews. So I'm right in there. I feel like Frostpunk is a B+. And it's a B+ because it is flawless in terms of the smooth way that the game runs and all of the systems operate. Just a really, really polished and interesting game. It looks amazing, it sounds amazing, it's got a unique voice. My only detractors from the game are it's incredibly challenging, and it feels like sometimes there's only really, maybe one or two right answers. There's not as much diversity in planning your town, in building as I like, and this is just me personally, but in builders, I feel good about just kind of chilling out and looking at my city and marveling at it. And you get to do that sometimes, but it's so small and the situation is so bad that you aren't doing it, to really glory in anything except for the fact that you're not dead. So that's not a huge detractor. It's just a different spin on the genre, and I think it's really, really well done. So that is my review and my grade for Frostpunk. And now it's time to move into the second portion of this review, where I'm going to talk about whether or not I think you should play the game. So Frostpunk is a unique sell because, given some of the detractors I mentioned, it wasn't a game that I initially was like, I love this game. I was actually like, I might uninstall this game because I just thought it was too difficult. However, it was a game that really stuck with me once I got some advice from people. And once you make progress and understand the logic of the game, it becomes much more fun. And when you can survive and get through some really hard moments that claimed your city in the past, it does feel fun, but you kind of have to work for it. So it's got a learning curve to it. So if you like builders, you're probably in the wheelhouse where you want to play the game, but it's more if you like challenges, if you like survival games, if you like management games that put you up against it, then Frostpunk is going to be for you. If you're a person who just likes to chill and, play City Skyline or Anno or something like that, I'm not sure this is necessarily for you, because it is not a chill experience. I mean, it's chill in terms of temperature, but it's not relaxed. It's a very, very pins and needles, dicey, razor's edge type of experience. And when we think about that, let's talk about the difficulty of the game. I think it's hard. I think it's a challenging game. It's going to take you several attempts to clear even the first scenario, I think. And that's okay, gives it some replay, but it is a challenging game. It's not going to be a game you just sit down and win on your first try, because it's built that way. And there are things that I don't think you could plan for unless you knew in advance necessarily that they were going to happen. So it's really challenging, and that attracts some players and maybe makes others move along. So what about the value of Frostpunk? Well, given the fact that this is an older game and, it's on like a deep discount right now with the Steam Summer Sale, it's an excellent value. You're going to get a lot of play out of this game once you get into it. And even at full price, I think it's only $30 because it's an older game. And I think that's a good value. I think there's enough to do in this game and enough to learn that you will get your money's worth, especially if you get it on sale. And replayability is an interesting one for Frostpunk because, like I said, it's built in because you're going to lose and need to replay it. And there also is the nature that you could take a different path with your city and choose, instead of maybe religion, going for the more brutal survival tree that, opens up some new elements and aspects to the game and makes it feel different. Or maybe you push in a technological direction instead and you try a different, route down your tech tree to give it a different feel. That's certainly possible. So there is replayability indeed. So overall, I recommend Frostpunk because I think it's just a well-done game. It's a lot of fun. But you have to prepare yourself mentally that it is going to be a challenge, that you're not going to win, and there's a learning curve. If you can accept the brutal nature of the game and the challenge, I really feel like this game has a lot to offer, and I would recommend it. But if you are looking for a relaxed building experience, this is not going to be what... it just isn't that. So if you're looking to play the game, and you've got it, or maybe you're thinking about getting it, and you want to learn how to get through that difficulty curve, I'm going to link my beginner's guide for Frostpunk. It's a complete series. It goes really, really in-depth to all of the systems and strategies so that you can, get into the game and learn the basics and the fundamentals. Everyone, I want to say thank you so much for watching this review, and I'd love to know what you think of Frostpunk. Would you give it a B+ like me? Would you grade it higher? Would you grade it lower? Do you think this is a good game? Not a good game? What are your thoughts? Put those in the comments. I'd love to read them. And I want to say thank you so much, everyone. I'll check you in the next one. Take care.